Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, I want to talk about a special day that just passed this week. A few days ago, it was the 1 year anniversary of quitting my job, to follow the path of my intuition. I was having a conversation with my husband after he watched or listened to the very first episode of this podcast, and he was saying, great, wonderful, and all of that. But he was like, Lisa, I don't think that you've really discussed the gravity of the decision to walk away from your job. And I was like, you know what? I haven't really talked about that. I talked about why I left in that first episode, but I haven't really talked about the gravity of that decision. So, in this episode, I want to talk about specifically what I walked away from, how I was feeling when I walked away, what changed over the course of the last year, where I'm at now, and some lessons from the past year of letting my intuition guide me. So, let me start by painting you a real picture of what my life looked like while I was still working before I quit my job. So I had come back to work after mat leave, and I was working for about 8 months before I left after coming back from mat leave. And I was depleted. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I think I specifically struggled because I didn't feel a connection to my job. I didn't feel a sense of fulfillment from the work that I was doing. And it's not to say that the work isn't fulfilling, because I think that there are many people who can do the same role and it feel fulfilling, but it was not fulfilling for me. And I think that just has to do with it being not aligned with my path. So I want to differentiate between that. So there had been many conversations I was having with my husband about wanting to leave, and what kept me there for a long time is anytime I would think about leaving, it was like, but not yet. Like when I actually gave myself the option of Lisa, you can walk away. Do you want to walk away right now? It was like, no, not yet. So what I started to tell myself was, when it's time to leave, you'll know. I'm not going to sit here and write a list of pros and cons. I'm not going to sit here and attempt to strategize on the best time to leave and all the potential possibilities. I trusted that when it was time to leave that I would know. And that's exactly what took place. It was a moment where I was sitting at my desk and it just kind of hit me. I said, what if I left end of August, beginning of September? And it just felt right. For the first time, I had asked myself, do you want to leave? And here is a time frame. And it felt right. It was like, yeah, that feels really good. And I went to my Reiki master because I was like, that felt like my intuition. I finally had a date and it felt like it was time, and that felt like my intuition, but it was such a huge life decision that I needed a second opinion, but not an opinion of whether or not to leave logically. I needed an opinion of whether or not that was really my intuition speaking to me. So I went to my Reiki master and she said, I didn't give her the dates or anything. I just said, I'm feeling intuitively called to leave my job, and I just want to be sure that that's my intuition speaking to me. And she tuned in and she said, it's your intuition. And the message she was getting was take the leap of faith. And the time frame that she was given was end of August, early September. And I said, that's exactly the same time frame that I was getting. And the message of take the leap of faith is exactly what I was feeling as well. And as I was thinking to make this decision, I wasn't feeling drawn to starting a new role in the same type of career. I wasn't feeling a pull to work at a different company. And when she tuned in, she said, don't rush into another job. She said, try to follow your intuition. And I said, okay, exactly everything that you said is exactly everything that I was feeling. So I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to take a leap of faith, and I'm going to walk away. So what I walked away from was a career I had been building for 10 years. 8 of those years had been at a large tech company. The last 8 years were at a large tech company. And when I first started this career 10 years ago, my salary was like less than 40,000. And in those 10 years, it had grown, especially working at a large tech company, right? Their salaries are basically incomparable to most. And by the time I walked away, I think my last 2 W-2s were well over $200,000 a year. So I walked away from what felt like a giant safety net. I was in a financial position to just like not really look at the price of anything before buying. And that felt safe, especially growing up and not having that same sense of safety around money. But I've talked about this before, how it took having all of these things to say, my dream life is not created through the things that I have, it's created through the ways that I spend my time. And I wasn't spending my time in a way that felt free. I think when you're making the lower six figures, like 100K, 200K, I think it's an interesting place, and I hope this does not come across the wrong way, because I absolutely understand how privileged I was to make that amount of money and to be in a place where I wasn't worried about my basic necessities. I absolutely recognize that. But I also want to say that when you're making that amount of money, you are likely, if you have a job, you are trading your time for money. So it's like a very specific position to be in. And I know a lot of people that were in the same boat that I was that aren't happy and that are extremely burnt out, but they keep going because the money is good and it keeps them feeling safe and financially secure in their basic necessities, plus more met. So they stay in a role where they are burnt out and exhausted and depressed because of the money that that affords them. And I think that those who are able to get into the higher brackets of wealth, it's usually because they have found a way to not necessarily trade time for money, right? To build wealth in other ways where they are not trading their time for money. So I walked away from a career that I had spent 10 years building, making over $200,000 a year at a large tech company, and I was contributing half of the finances to our family. And yes, I was committed to following my intuition, but I also wasn't going to do that recklessly. I don't think my intuition would have guided me to do something reckless. And so I, yes, I walked away from that amount of money, but I'm also privileged to have built a very large savings. So I didn't walk away and leave my husband hanging. I made this commitment to follow my intuition, and I was taking the leap of faith, but I wasn't going to ask my husband to do the same. He has been wonderful, and it's been a year, and he has not once questioned my actions or, any of this journey. He has just said, I trust you. And so the goal was to never rely on him 100% financially, and I wasn't going to leave our household hanging. So I have still been paying my part. And so that was a huge risk that I have taken, not just in walking away from a career, but financially too, right? It's all just been one huge leap of faith and trust in my own intuition and trust in myself. And I'm so proud of the girl who had the courage to walk away. There's a specific picture I took on my last day that I'm thinking of, and I'm in like purple leggings and a pink t-shirt, and my hair is a mess and my skin is breaking out because I had just reached a point of just like depletion and burnout. and I'm holding my laptop and I'm just smiling because it's my last day. And thinking of that picture, thinking of that version of myself almost brings me to tears because I'm just so proud of the girl, that version, that girl who had the courage to walk away from all of that, because that is that was brave. So, anyways, I thought I would really emphasize the gravity of that decision, of what I walked away from. It was a huge leap of faith that I took on myself. And I guess that segues well into, so what happened over the last year and was it worth it? How did I spend my time? Well, for starters, I took on the role of stay-at-home mom. So yes, this journey this past year has been dedicated to following the path of my intuition, and I have been committed to and doing exactly that. But in like the day-to-day of how I was spending my time, I was spending time with my toddler, taking care of him, and taking care of our household. So I really like took on the role of stay-at-home mom. And I think a lot of those things come very natural to me. I really enjoy cooking and cleaning. I love cleaning, you guys. And motherhood feels like it comes pretty naturally to me as well. So I was able to take on all of those without it requiring a ton of mental capacity, because it can feel very natural to me. And so in terms of like what I was thinking about, or like what was occupying a lot of my mental capacity, was the path of my intuition. And I had my son's nap times, and when he would go down for the night, that is when I was dedicated to following the path of my intuition, to learning how to tune into my intuition, to everything involved in my healing journey over the past year. It was basically done through my son's nap times and after he would go to bed. So, what did I do over the past year? So, in the last year, I let my intuition guide me on a healing journey. And that included healing my nervous system. I was in a place of complete depletion and burnout. So, healing my nervous system, learning how to process my emotions, learning how to sit with discomfort. And by that, I mean just when an emotion was coming up, sitting with it, feeling it. And that was just like, that becomes like a daily practice, right? Restructuring my life, implementing new habits and routines. My morning routine, my nighttime routine, everything in between is all different than how I was living before I quit my job. And a lot of those changes involve taking care of myself in a way that I wasn't before. Launching this podcast and starting a TikTok, which is the process of healing my throat chakra and getting comfortable speaking my truth. That in itself occupied a huge portion of following my intuition over the last year. So those two things, huge. I have implemented daily energetic practices. So clearing, protecting my energy, doing somatic work, doing energy work, like all of that, and implementing that into a sort of daily practice. There has been so much involved in every single one of those things. And you could probably go back through my podcast, because I've talked about all of these things and like the drilled down details of how I actually accomplished all of that healing. But through all those changes and the commitment to all of those changes, I feel so much better than I did before. And that doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. That doesn't mean that I'm like great all the time now. Like this week, to be honest, has been a harder week than usual. But when I think of like how I've evolved over the past year, it's not that I now have this lack of uncomfortable emotions. It's that now there is a gentleness and compassion with which I treat myself during those uncomfortable emotions. And that to me is what signifies the evolution. So was it worth it? Was it worth it? I think back to the path that I was on when I was still working. And if I had continued down that same path, I think that was a predictable one. I think I could have kept going probably until I hit rock bottom. And this alternate path that I took, deciding to quit, deciding to walk away and spend a year healing, that gave me my energy back, which to me is priceless. That gave me a year with my toddler, also priceless. That gave me my well-being back, priceless. And above all, the growth that I've witnessed within myself, priceless. So if I had to go back in time, I would make the same decision again. I would make the same decision twice, because the year, everything that has occurred in this year, I feel like a completely different person, and at the same time, I feel the most me I've ever felt. I feel the most confident in who I am, the most self-acceptance, the most self-compassion that I think I've ever felt. And the way that I live my life with such care these days, such intentionality, such care for myself, it's a night and day difference. It was absolutely worth it, and I would absolutely do it again. Am I sitting here before you making $200,000 a year? No. So, I'm still managing that balance of following the path of my intuition and also not being reckless, and also keeping in mind my family and the impact on them. So I'm still managing that balance, but I still have faith that this is going to work out. So, what now? I think it's interesting that I'm filming this episode at this specific time, because for the past year I'd been working up to getting back on TikTok, which if you watched my last episode, I did. And now I'm experiencing sort of an in-between where I don't know what the next step is yet. And what's interesting is even with nothing happening, I'm still healing, because I'm realizing that in the stillness, what bubbles up is a mindset of scarcity. Like, if I'm not taking action, if I'm not doing something, will I have nothing? So even in the stillness, I'm being triggered and I'm seeing more opportunities for healing. And I've been journaling on that this week, and something tells me, like, just hold, just wait. Just wait, Lisa. I've been like doing little meditations around abundance, and my intuition is saying, like, sure, yeah, have fun, you can do that, but like, you don't have to. So I guess my intuition is not completely silent. What the message I'm getting is like, hold, like, keep doing what you're doing, keep embodying this new version of yourself, and like, hold that. That's the message that I'm getting right now. But I will say, even though the last year has been dedicated to healing, and even in the stillness, I'm seeing more opportunities for healing, it feels like I'm moving out of this, of healing being the focus, if that makes sense. Healing is lifelong, right? Like, you're always going to be triggered by things. You're always going to have opportunities to step outside of your comfort zone. So there's going to be continual growth, and with that, continual healing. But it feels like I'm moving out of this focus on healing. So yeah, I guess I guess my intuition is not totally quiet. What I'm sensing is, right now, what's happening, what I'm sensing is that I'm moving out of this focus on healing, and I'm feeling this pull to just like hold this newer version of myself. I guess hold this newer vibration. And then we will see what comes next. So I thought I would end on some lessons that I've learned over the past year. I've written down 7 in no particular order. I will probably stop with those 7, but I don't know. We'll see if any more come to mind as I'm talking. Number 1, you don't have to wait until you're ready. Forward progress is made quickly by taking action and sitting with the discomfort of that action. I don't think I felt fully ready for anything over the past year. Everything was uncomfortable. I think I felt more discomfort over the past year than I have in like the last 5, just because I was constantly growing. I've said this quote before. Brene Brown said this quote. She said, I should have looked it up. She said, "Those who rise the fastest are the ones with the greatest capacity for discomfort." That's true. You don't have to wait to feel ready. You can do it scared and then sit with the physical sensations that arise and let them be present with you. And then continue to keep moving forward and taking action. Number 2, let your triggers guide your healing. I think it's so important to not identify as someone who always needs healing. I think it's important to not make like a laundry list of the things that you need healed. I think it's important to not go out looking for things to heal. You might end up opening up a can of worms that don't need to be open. I think that it's important to let your triggers guide your healing. So pay attention to what's coming up in your everyday life. Pay attention to patterns that you're seeing. Relationships are so key for this because they're mirrors for you, whether this is your partner or your kids or your friends or your family. All of the relationships that you have around you are perfect mirrors. So pay attention to what triggers you and use that for a deeper level of healing. Number 3, embrace the unknown. Trust can be built, but it is mandatory. Trust within yourself, trust within your intuition, those can be built. You don't have to immediately go and jump off the diving board with some huge action the way that I did by quitting my job. I mean, yes, I did take that giant leap of faith, but it is because I had been following my intuition for quite some time, that I had built trust in my intuition. So if you need to build trust, do that. Take the small actions. Follow the little signs that don't have a whole lot of risk involved and see what happens. See the outcome. See how it plays out. That is how you build trust in yourself, in your intuition, that when you get to those bigger moments where there is a little bit more risk involved, you have that trust within yourself, because anything external to you is going to be a false sense of security. The real safety, the real security comes from trust from within yourself. So develop that. And then once you have that, embrace the unknown. I think it's almost automatic that once you have that trust in your intuition and trust in yourself, that you are better able to embrace the unknown. But the path of your intuition, there is no blueprint. There is other people who are also following their intuition, but it may lead them on a completely different path than the one that you're on, or the one that you're supposed to go on. So you are your own guide through this, and that is why trust is mandatory. Number 4, building your dream life requires you to stop escaping reality and get to know yourself intimately, because your dream life is tied to how you spend your time. And the only way to know how to spend your time in a way that is fulfilling and joyful is to know how you want to spend your time. And I think a lot of us are distracted by our phones and scrolling social media, and there's so many so many so many things available to us for a quick dopamine hit. And I say this with a lot of experience in that area. But I think that because we have such easy access to that, it prevents us from ever getting bored. And without the boredom, we don't seek out that which may bring us a deeper sense of fulfillment and joy. In December of last year, I turned off my phone for the entire month. And in that same month, I quit coffee, because I said, I think coffee and my phone are masking what is really my depleted life force energy. And I can see how that may be true for so many. I know what it feels like to be depleted and exhausted and reach for your phone or reach for coffee as the solution. And I think it's a band-aid. And I think changing your life requires asking a lot of the really big questions. a lot of the deeper questions, to know yourself more intimately, to know what is going to bring you fulfillment and joy that is not just a band-aid. So that may be a hard one to hear. Number 5, changing your life is about changing your habits and your routines. I always thought that it was like these big decisions that were just going to solve everything. I thought that quitting my job, I thought that the very next day I would feel like I was flying. And that's not what took place. I kept looking for this like one thing to be the answer, to be the solution. And the reality is that my life changed because of all of the ways that I changed my habits and routines, and the way that I was caring for myself, and the way that I was showing up, and the way that I was intentional about everything that I was doing. It was through changing my habits and routines. That is what changed my life. Number 6, the best investment you can make is in yourself. The best commitment you can make is to yourself. I'm just going to leave that one there. I feel like this whole episode has explained that one pretty well. And the last one, focus on the next step. I think that sometimes dreams and visions can feel really big and therefore daunting because you don't really know how to bring that to life. So I think it's important to always just focus on the next step. What action can I take today? What aligned action can I take today that is going to bring me closer to the version of myself I want to be, that is going to bring me closer to my dream life, closer to, I don't know, whatever else you are intending, whatever else you envision for yourself, focusing on the next step, breaking down the bigger dream, the bigger vision into tangible next steps. The way that I follow my intuition is focusing on the next step, and I never know where it's leading me. But this year has also been approaching a lot of things that I've never done before. Starting a podcast, so many other things. And I could have said, I have absolutely no idea how to do that and it all feels really big. But instead, I broke it down into micro tasks, mini tasks that I could do every day during my son's nap time, after he went to bed at night, to get me one step closer. And it is through each next step that I'm able to reflect back on a year and see the growth that I've seen. So I hope you enjoyed that very long but very real update of what took place, where I'm at, and also some of the lessons that I've learned over the past year. A lot went into learning those lessons, so I hope that you are able to pick up something vicariously through me. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.